Tubyam cha narada brisham bhagavan vivridha. Bhavena sadhu paritushta uvacha yogam. Jnanam cha bhagavatam atma satatpadipam. Yad vasudeva sarana vidu anjasaiva. Tubhyam, unto you, cha, also, Narada, O Narada, Brisham, very nicely, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Vivrida, developed, Bhavena, by transcendental love, Sadhu, your goodness, Paritushta, being satisfied, Uvacha, described, Yogam, service, Jnanam, knowledge, Cha, also, Bhagavatam, the science of God, and his devotional service, Atma, the self, Satattva, with all details, Deepam, just like the light in the darkness, Yat, that which, Vasudeva Sadhana, those who were soul surrendered unto Lord Vasudeva, Vidu, know them, Anjasa, perfectly well, Eva, as it is. Translation, O Narada, you were taught about the science of God and his transcendental loving service by the personality of Godhead in his incarnation as Hamsa Avatara. He was very much pleased with you due to your intense proportion of devotional service. He also explained unto you lucidly the full science of devotional service, which is especially understandable by persons who are soul surrendered unto Lord Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead. Purport. The devotee and devotional service are two correlative terms. Unless one is inclined to be a devotee of the Lord, he cannot enter into the intricacies of devotional service. Lord Sri Krishna wanted to explain the Bhagavad Gita, which is the science of devotional service, unto Sri Arjuna, because Arjuna was not only his friend but a great devotee as well. The whole process is that all living entities, being constitutionally parts and parcels of the Supreme Living Being, the Absolute Personality of Godhead, have proportionally minute independence of action also. So the preliminary qualification for entering into the devotional service of the Lord is that one become a willing cooperator, and as such one should voluntarily cooperate with persons who are already engaged in the transcendental devotional service of the Lord. By cooperating with such persons, the prospective candidate will gradually learn the techniques of devotional service, and with the progress of such learning, one becomes proportionately freed from the contamination of material association. Such a purificative process will establish the prospective candidate in firm faith and gradually elevate him to the stage of transcendental taste for such devotional service. Thus, he acquires a genuine attachment for the devotional service of the Lord, and his conviction carries him on to the point of ecstasy, just prior to the stage of transcendental love. Such knowledge of devotional service may be divided into two sections, namely preliminary knowledge of the nature of devotional service and the secondary knowledge of its execution. Bhagavatam is in relation with the personality of Godhead, his beauty, fame, opulence, dignity, attraction, and transcendent qualities which attract one towards him for exchanges of love and affection. There is a natural affinity of the living entity for the loving service of the Lord. This affinity becomes artificially covered by the influence of material association, and Srimad Bhagavatam helps one very genuinely remove that artificial covering. Therefore, it is particularly mentioned herein that Srimad Bhagavatam acts like the lamp of transcendental knowledge. These two sections of transcendental knowledge and devotional service become revealed to a person who is a soul surrendered unto Vasudeva, as is said in the Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Such a great soul, fully surrendered under the lotus feet of Vasudeva, is very, very rare. So continuing on, now Lord Brahma is mentioning about Hamsa Avatar. Hamsa Avatar, the Lord who came in the form of the swan. We learnt about the Matsya Avatar and Kurma Avatar, and the fish and the tortoise, and now the swan. So many different types of incarnations and forms of the Lord. We were just the story I was saying, that the story of Bali Maharaj and Lord Vamanadev, and so many wonderful stories. To have this type of idea to come in so many forms. No one could really think of these things, like the mind of the Supreme Personality, how he comes in different forms and for specific purposes. The swan, the form of the Hamsa, came to answer the questions of the Kumaras that they were asking their father, Lord Brahma. And now here also is mentioned that Lord Brahma mentions that Lord Hamsa also taught Narad Muni. You were taught about the science of God and his transcendental loving service by the personality of Godhead in his form as Hamsa. So I researched this, and as far as the actual incident or the circumstance which he directly taught Narad Muni, but I wasn't able to find the actual occurrence in itself. But nevertheless, Lord Brahma says quite emphatically that you, Narad, were taught by Hamsa Avatar, and you were specifically taught about devotional service. You were taught about the science of God and his transcendental loving service by the personality of God in his incarnation of Hamsa Avatar. Now, when the Lord came to instruct the Kumaras, that you can read in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, especially in the 13th chapter. The whole chapter there more or less describes the Lord's conversation. Actually here, I can just read a little bit. The actual yoga system as taught by my devotees, headed by Sanat Kumara, is simply this. Having withdrawn the mind from all other objects, one should directly and appropriately absorb it in me. And of course Krishna was speaking to Uddhava. And so Uddhava is asking, my dear Keshava, at what time and in what form did you instruct the science of yoga to Sanat and his brothers? I now desire to know about these things. And then of course Krishna answers, once the mental sons of Brahma, namely the sages headed by Sanat, inquired from their father about the difficult subject of the supreme goal of yoga. And so here it is mentioned by Krishna to Uddhava that Brahma himself, although very elevated, somehow or other didn't think that he could properly answer the questions asked by the Kumaras, and so he thought that they are best answered by the Supreme Lord directly, and he went into meditation on the Lord. Thus he fixed his mind on me, the Supreme Lord. At that time, in my form of Hamsa, I became visible to Lord Brahma and the Kumaras. So it's actually mentioned here in one of these, in the purport here, and quoted from the Acharyas, that Lord Brahma had the darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead previously, and the Lord empowered him. It's a little unusual that he himself couldn't answer these questions, And it is explained here by the acharyas that he was at that time very absorbed in the matter of the creation. And because his mind was absorbed in that way, he didn't feel the capacity because of that. And so the acharyas say that one has to always be careful. This can be an example to us that even though we may be nicely situated, when we absorb our minds in so many intense activities, the mind may become a little clouded, or the intelligence may become a little clouded, and that direct understanding may escape one momentarily. And so the acharyas explain that one has to be careful for this, because we engage in so many different activities. So in the engagement of those activities, we must always remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and don't let the activities separate our remembrance of the Supreme Lord. So it is explained that even great personalities of like Lord Brahma, he was affected by that. So what to speak of ordinary living entities like you and I. So this is a nicely explained there why Lord Brahma couldn't directly answer the questions of the Kumaras. But nevertheless, Lord Hamsa appeared in the form of the swan. Now also it is explained that he appeared in the Satya Yuga, the golden age, in the Satya Yuga, and actually his instructions to the Kumaras about yoga and Sankhya, very nice questions, and very nice, you can read in the Srimad Bhagavatam in 11th canto, the Lord's explanation to the Kumaras, and it's a very philosophical presentation about the mind and the senses and the interaction of the mind and senses with the object of the senses, and how to become transcendental to that position. So this is all the yoga explanation and meditation. So Lord Hamsa is actually considered the Yuga avatar for the Satya Yuga. He's sometimes referred to by different names, but he is also known as Lord Hamsa. So the different yugas, so Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, have their Yuga avatar, the main incarnation that gives the method of self-realization for that age, what is appropriate for the people of that age. So in that Satya Yuga, where people lived a very long time, had more power of focus and so on, and more transcendental, more mode of goodness qualities at least. The method was this form of yoga and ultimately meditation. And meditation, Lord Krishna explains meditation on me. But here we find that Brahma is mentioning about Narad Muni also having received instruction from Lord Hamsa. And his instruction was more on the path of devotional service. Narada, of course, has many different appearances of Narad. We can see a very famous personality mentioned in many different Puranas, and there's many interactions of Narad and others, how he blessed them in so many different ways and helped them advance in devotional service. So he's a very great acharya in the matter of devotional service, but he was instructed by Lord Hamsa. Actually, Narada received many different instructions, but here is mentioned he was instructed about devotional service. So, now, he was very much pleased with you, Lord Brahma says, due to your intense proportion of devotional service. So it is a fact that the Lord becomes very pleased, seeing, the devotional attitude of his devotee. In fact, Prabhupada goes on at length in the purport to describe that really to understand, and he uses the word, you can understand the intricacies of devotional service. And he says, Krishna says in many, Bhaktya mamma vijanati javan chaschatmi tattva man tattva vishadeta dalantaram. Krishna goes so far as to say, actually I can only be understood by devotional service. So here Prabhupada says there are two correlative terms that when you're talking about a devotee, you're talking about devotional service because they're intrinsic. It's just innate. It's just natural. Natural. A devotee means they're devotional. They have devotion, and so when one has devotion, they'll naturally want to do things. It's quite easy to understand. At the moment, our devotion is kind of artificial, superficial, in this world, and it's affected by the modes of nature. So it's very shallow. We're devoted for a certain amount of time, but according to the modes of nature, we're affected by it, especially mode of passion, ignorance. That devotion wanes. We're devoted to a thing. You quite often see this. We ourselves experience. We're very, enthusiastic, and then, but 6 months later, sometimes you'll meet the same person. Oh, I thought you were really into this. Oh no, I've gone off to now I'm into this. They can't. That's typical of so-called devotion in the material world. It doesn't go very deep and it's very much affected. And that's artificial because naturally we have devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when one has actual devotion for someone else, has devotion, has affection for someone else, they'll automatically want to do things for them. So therefore, devotee and devotional service are two terms that are correlative, synonymous with each other. Devotee, this devotee, but he doesn't do any devotional service. It doesn't make any sense. If a devotee doesn't do any devotional service, then how is he devoted to anything? So it's very important. And Prabhupada very much stressed, I was giving an online class yesterday, I think, to the devotees in Western Sydney. And I was mentioning this point about devotional service. They asked me to speak on the 6 Goswamis, and I read from the prayers by Srinivasacharya, Krishna Kirtana Gananatana Paro, those famous prayers where he's glorifying the 6 Goswamis. And in those prayers there's much mention of how they enjoyed chanting, they liked rendering devotional service. So I was explaining like that. And I remember in the early days we used to have this saying, Ram Prasad, a few older devotees will remember, we used to have that, Bhakta so-and-so, or so-and-so does has he's got a good devotional attitude, a good service attitude. Remember that? Got a good service attitude. So-and-so's got a very good service attitude. And so it's just natural. It's just natural for the devotee to want to do service. And I remember when we were in Vrindavan for the opening of Krishna Balaram temple, just a small anecdote, but it was delayed. They wanted to open it the year before. Prabhupada wanted to open the year before, but it was delayed. So it was opened, I think the day was the appearance of Lord Ram. And so we were there. Prabhupada asked us to do 24-hour kirtan. They had brought their big South Indian brahmanas to do all the rituals and everything. But Prabhupada said, but the main thing for us is the kirtan. So he organised that 24-hour kirtan. And so in between the kirtan sessions, I think we were on a couple of times during the day. But then when the temple was almost ready, they'd painted and got it all ready, almost ready to go with the opening of the temple. A few of us brahmacharis, we were going around and having a look in there. We were in the courtyard there of Krishna Balaram temple. And just at that time Prabhupada came in. And he was accompanied by a couple of his servants. And we, of course, paid our obeisances and got up, and Prabhupada asked us, and so, you like the new temple? Yes, Prabhupada, very nice. What are you doing? We're just going around having a look. And he said, but you're not doing any service? You're not doing any service? Well, Prabhupada, we just thought we'd have a look, And then he turned to his servant and said, give them some service. It's scrapping, cleaning. And I remember one of them came down, one of his servants came down and said, "You better make sure it's all clean, Prabhupada's coming back." So Prabhupada would like everything nice and clean, like that. I remember one time he came through the Melbourne temple and he ran his finger along the windowsill. It was dirty. And he said, "Where is the temple president?" That was Ballarat. Ballarat was the temple. Where's the temple president? So, the acharyas, they want to see a nice clean temple, nice service being done, everything like that. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very famous for walking through not only the temple and looking in the deity room and walking through the ashram as well. He wanted to go through the ashram, walking through, seeing everything was clean. It's not good. You come and do your service in the deity room, the cleaning the altar, and then but your ashram back in your room, there's clothes everywhere, it's all dirty, you haven't done a wash for a week, and so that's not good. So this is a type of service, cleaning. So service was very much emphasized by Srila Prabhupada. He always told us, don't be lazy, always be active, doing something in Krishna's service. And because by doing service, one builds up attachment. At the moment, our service is separated from Krishna. We're doing so much service in the material world. So therefore, we become attached to things in the material world. When you do something for someone or something for a long time, naturally you're going to become very attached to that thing. I mean, you put so much energy into it, and you become very attached to it. And if someone tries to take it away, you're not going to allow it because you're attached to it now. And so doing service. So this is the secret, because it's concomitant with the soul. Its constitutional position is to be actively rendering service. Prabhupada used the example of water. Just like the constitutional position of water is liquidity. Its natural state is liquid. You can freeze it, you can heat it and it becomes steam, but it's always trying to come back to water. It's always trying to come back because its natural state is water. So artificially now we're removed from doing service in Krishna consciousness, and we're doing service in the material world. But there's, that's just artificial, just not natural, and we're not satisfied. So here are two correlative terms, devotee and devotional service. We can't say, oh, here's a devotee, but this devotee doesn't do any devotional service. Oh, Prabhu, what about doing this service? No. What about that one then? No. How about you go and do that? No. Won't do it. Can't do it. Get someone else to do it. Remember there was one devotee that come from India. He come from a big Brahmin family. So then he came and complained to me that he said so-and-so is asking him to clean the pots in the kitchen. And so he's not doing that. I'm not doing that. That is, I'm born in the Brahmin family. That is for the others to do that thing. So I had to explain to him the difference between, mundane activity and spiritual activity. And I told him the story of the Goswamis were very humble. So whatever they could do, whether it's cooking or cleaning, they did for the service of Krishna. So in the end he understood. But he was a little affected by his birth and the family and the upbringing and the whole thing. So we get conditioned like that, and so we get affected by the mode of ignorance, mode of passion. Mode of ignorance means that we don't like to do anything. Procrastinating is one of the symptoms of the mode of ignorance. Or procrastinating, always putting it off. This needs to be clean. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. So one of the symptoms. So devotee is always active, doing something. And here, Prabhupada talks about when really to understand devotional service, one has to be a devotee. And Krishna reveals himself more and more, and Lord Brahma makes a point of this. He said that the Lord was pleased. He saw your proportionate level of devotional service. Bhaktyamam can only be understood by devotees. Naham prakasa savi. Krishna said, I am not revealed to the foolish and unintelligent. They can't understand. They don't understand the intricacies. So if you want to go deep, you have to associate with, and just like anything in the world, if you want to, study, you're going to university, you're studying architecture, you're studying medicine. What's the best? You learn in a certain way, and you associate with others who are also studying, and you also learn from those who are expert in the field. And so it's true, materially speaking. So it's certainly and definitely true, spiritually speaking. So this is recommended here. And Prabhupada goes through the different intricacies, the different stages of development of devotional service. And more or less he's outlining that where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there's a nice section in Chaitanya Charitamrita where he's instructing Sanatana Goswami about devotional service and so on. And he talks about the different stages of development of devotional service. And that section there. So he was speaking to, he was instructing Sanatana Goswami for 2 months in Varanasi. And he quoted Adho Shraddha Tara Sadhu, and Prabhupada mentions this whole gradual development. First of all, one has to have a desire to be a devotee. If you haven't got a desire to be a devotee, you're not going to learn really much about devotional service. It'll be just peripheral. It'll be superficial. So if you want to be a devotee, then Adho Shraddha, you have a desire, and then Tada Sadhu, then you want to associate with others. That's natural, as I mentioned. Those who want to do a sport, those who want to learn some type of line of work, they associate with others, they learn from the experts. So similarly, those who want to know about Krishna, those who want to know about being a devotee, start the process, the bhajana kriya. Doshara tarasadu sangota bhajana kriya to nata. And then they learn about what are the contaminations, what are the things to look out for on the path of devotional service. They can gradually go up. And become free from anarthas. They become nishta. In the beginning we're anishta, we're a little unsteady. We go back and forward, then we become steady. When we become steady, then you start getting a preliminary taste. Of course, these things can be felt all along, but when one gets more substantially on the path, taking guidance from the devotees, learning from those who are expert in the field, one takes guidance from the guru, so on. So we see great personalities. They take instruction. Narad Muni took instruction from Lord Hamsa. The Kumaras, Lord Ram, Lord Krishna. I mean, everyone, they showed the example. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he accepted the guru. I was giving another class, I think I mentioned the other day, that was to another one. I mentioned that someone brought up a question in the class: Can we chant japa silently? Can we chant japa silently? I said, well, the main thing is that Harinam Anukirtanam. Kirtan, whether it's loud kirtan or whether it's a japa, you have to learn from the authorities how to do these things. If you want to actually advance rapidly in Krishna consciousness, you have to learn how to do japa from the authorities. Now, the authorities like Haridas Thakur and others say that japa should be not silently, but should be aloud. At least that one can hear themselves. So this is what the acharyas explain. So whatever it is, whether should I chant japa silently, should I do this, should I do that, you inquire and you get the guidance. I mean, you can do whatever you want. Oh, I'm going to chant silently. I don't care what anyone else says. I like to chant silently. Well, you can do whatever you want. Who's stopping you? But if you're interested in making advancement rapidly on the path of devotional service, then you'll be smart. Then you'll follow the experts. I'm going to fix the car myself. I don't need to take it to a mechanic. How many times have we all done, especially you guys, right? How many times have we all done this? You go in there and you fix it. All right, turn it on. Bang! Oh, what happened? What happened? Of course, you could be lucky. Oh, it works real good. It could be. Maybe. Or maybe not. And then you go to the expert. Who was the idiot that mucked around with this? Right. That's what one fella told me when I was young. Who was the idiot that mucked around with this? So, yeah, I was the idiot. And you made a mess in here. Now it's going to cost you more. If you had have brought it straight to me, I thought it was going to be too expensive. Well, it's going to be really expensive now. So you can do whatever you want, but if you're smart, then you'll follow those who are expert, you follow the authority. So I answered, Gayatri we chant silently. That's for a few minutes. That is instructed by the Acharya. You chant Gayatri silently. And we can fix it. It's especially meant for the mind and like that. And it's for a few minutes. But to chant japa, which goes over a long period, to fix the mind, you have to chant loudly so you can hear very nicely. So therefore, all these things have to be understood very nicely from taking guidance from the authority. Then gradually. And then when sometimes we go this way, we go that way, we can take advice. Oh, what should I do to try to improve my situation? And they can help you on the path of devotional service. So this is what Prabhupada explains here, and they're very nicely explained by Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami, where he quotes this Ado Shraddha Tada Sadhu Sangota, and he says actually that when one advances, especially to a high level, and at least the seed of love of God, it develops within the heart of the devotee, then there'll be further symptoms. And this is just the beginning. There'll be further symptoms. So therefore, just like when you go to a doctor, they can tell by the symptoms, to a certain degree, what's wrong. They always ask you these things. Do you feel dizziness? Are you feeling cold and hot? Or they ask you, what are the symptoms? So the very advanced devotees, they can tell, they can see, they can observe that what are the symptoms. And so similarly too, one who's advancing, they can understand by the symptoms. And of course this is observed over a period of time, because sometimes symptoms can be there just momentarily, but then over a long period, if someone observes a nice symptom, this devotee is making very nice advancement. So Lord Chaitanya explains to Sanatana Goswami, when there's a beginning, the seed is fructifying a little bit, he actually specifies very nicely, a very nice section here, the following nine symptoms manifest in one's behavior. 1, forgiveness. One becomes a very forgiving person. Concern that time's not wasted. There's another symptom. Detachment, absence of false prestige. Those who actually advance aren't going to get puffed up. False prestige. There's prestige in the world. Someone's got a lot of money, someone's got a high education. It's prestigious. But it's called false prestige because it's all temporary. So someone is not going to be affected by that. That's another symptom. Forgiveness, false prestige. One has got an eagerness, enthusiasm, a taste for chanting, likes to do the chanting. Attachment to the descriptions and the transcendental, likes to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Affection for those places where the Lord resides. Affection for the devotees of the Lord. These are some of the symptoms of one who's actually developing, is coming up to the levels of the beginning of the love of God. So one can see that, and if one has this in large amounts, no, this devotee is very... And then you go to the next levels and exercise. So, very nice conversation, but instruction. Lord Chaitanya goes on to say that if love for Krishna, even in the seedling form, is in the heart, and is starting to fructify, one is not agitated at all by material things. One is not agitated at all by material things. So, now, we read in the earlier on in the second canto about tadasmasadam hridayam bhatidam yadgriyamani harinamani nabikriyeta vikaro netel zamkatalu shuhasha. That if one chants Hare Krishna and doesn't cry in ecstasy, then that person is considered to have a heart made of stone. There's one verse we read earlier on. A heart made of stone. So what's our position? We're chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So what is our position? We're going to get out the chisel and crack that stone hard. Bang away at that stone hard. So that comes from following the process as given by the predecessor acharyas, and we hear that Lord Brahma says that Krishna was very pleased with you. So when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when his representatives, the great acharyas, are very pleased with someone, then they impart more and more knowledge. They see they're enthusiastic. They're very pleased. I remember one time Prabhupada was walking through the botanical gardens in Melbourne, and there were some ducks. He had some prasadam, and then he threw some prasadam to the ducks. And the ducks were quacking, quack, 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 and they come. And then some other ducks were very aggressive, pushing the other ducks aside. Quack, quack, quack. And then he threw some more to them. And then he said that, see these ducks, the ones who are coming forward, pushing the other ones aside. He said, I give them more. You normally think, oh, wait, be fair, give some to the other ones, right? Right? You were thinking that, right? I could see it. But Prabhupada said, no, I give the ones who are enthusiastic more. This is his thinking. They want it, so therefore I give it to them. How much do you want it? You want it? You're going to get it. So then the other ones, they saw the other ones, and then they all started. So then he fed all of them. So the ones who were aggressive got the other ones who weren't so aggressive fired up. So then he fed all of them. So we have to be like that in our attitude to advancing in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. I'll read this again. O Narad, you were taught about the science of God and his transcendent loving service by the personality of Godhead in his incarnation of Hamsa avatar. He was very much pleased with you due to your intense proportion of devotional service. He also explained unto you lucidly the full science of devotional service, which is especially understandable by persons who are souls surrendered unto Lord Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead. Any questions? I'll get the time for maybe one. Yes. Don't say anything about Prabhupada not being fair.
I want to try and understand that better. Because people are, it's like a herd mentality. The stronger ones dominate, and then there's weaker ones. And now in ISKCON we have so much devotee care because of the weaker ones. But maybe it is because they're not pushing themselves forward in Krishna consciousness. I don't know, could you explain it?
Well, I mean, I don't think we're mixing apples and oranges a little bit, I mean to say, devotee care, well, even in that case, the ones who need it the most get the most attention. But you can also apply it there in that sense, right? I mean, just like anywhere, say you've got an emergency situation, they're going to rush you in first. What's your situation? I've got a thorn in the. What's that one? This one's just had a heart attack. Whoop, let's get this one in first. because they really need it more. But they'll look after the other one, but they're just arranging things in such a way. So even on that level, but specifically Prabhupada was using that that incident with the ducks as an example about being enthusiastic in devotional service. So the more enthusiastic you are, the more the personality of Godhead is inclined to give you more mercy. You have to show your enthusiasm, and the more he's going to give you his mercy, and the more the Guru is going to give you. If one doesn't have any enthusiasm, say the Guru is speaking and doing kirtan, and the devotee, they're not very inclined. Of course, they'll give their mercy, but the other one over here is they're going to give them more. So they're waiting to see. They're waiting to see. So it's a little bit different understanding with perhaps a more mundane kind of outlook on it. But this is the spiritual perspective. We have to, maybe one quick. Yes.
Comment. I just want to say thank you very much for such a practical class, because it's very useful and very grounding to see. Because sometimes we hear a lot about philosophy, but we don't really hear, knowledge about what our level is and how important the basics are, like cleanliness and following the principles. So sometimes I would just wonder, because there's a lot of programs to train new people into philosophy, but I don't see any training into cleanliness. And due to that, sometimes in temples it's something that is, how can I say, neglected a little bit, and so we have big temples and there is hardly anyone to clean. So I'm just wondering if that is something that we could implement into the training.
Yeah, of course. They have to try to do to the best of their ability, make sure all the things are going on. So it's very important to have these types of this type of information. And just if it's not going on, then you yourself try to arrange it that it's going on. Everyone is trying to do to their best of ability. You can perhaps, if it's not, you feel something's neglected, then you can bring it up and see what can be done about that. But the main point is that concentrate yourself on understanding these things and trying to help others to also understand. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.